PlayStation Productions was established back in 2019 to adapt their video game franchises into movies and television shows, and they have been on a super successful streak. With 4 releases so far, the Uncharted and Gran Turismo movies, and The Last of Us and Twisted Metal TV shows, PlayStation Productions have successfully grossing films and positively rated and viewed TV shows. While there is still plenty to come in the future, it's time to look at what I like to call Phase 1 of PlayStation Productions so far. I'm going to be ranking these from the worst to the best PlayStation Productions has to offer. This list is not based on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever critics have said. This list is personal and yours may be different, so let me know how you rank these in the comments below. We're starting off with the worst, Uncharted. It's a miracle this film even came out. After a decade in development hell, which you can learn more about in this previous video of mine, Uncharted somehow launched PlayStation Productions on a strong note, at least financially. This film made a ton of money at the box office, and we're still waiting for the official announcement of a sequel. Uncharted is not the absolute worst movie out there, but it's not the best, and it's extremely forgettable. Really, it's a good popcorn flick to watch if you want something brainless, but that's about it. It's your standard action-adventure type of film, over-the-top set pieces and bland characters. Entertaining for its runtime, but not a movie I thought about after leaving the theater, and I remember feeling somehow underwhelmed. Really, it was the second time I saw the film in theaters that I actually enjoyed it more. One of its biggest issues, hands down, is the casting of characters. Mark Wahlberg is not a good Sully. It's like Mark Wahlberg is playing a version of Mark Wahlberg. Tom Holland does make for a decent Nathan Drake. Not my top pick, but I've always thought about having him as Nathan Drake is sometimes too similar to him playing Peter Parker. Though the banter and dialogue between the two is on point, they're an odd combo to see on screen. And in the end, when Sully looks more like the Sully we all know, it's kinda cringy. I was super happy to see Chloe in the movie, and for the most part, I didn't have much of a problem with her. At least the film got the idea of the characters right, like with Chloe having trust issues and being out there for herself, though the actress tries way too hard on her Australian accent. It's too forced and overpronounced, but that can always be improved upon. Though with big names like Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg and Antonio Banderas, it kinda feels like Chloe deserves someone more known. But the biggest disappointment comes with Jo Braddock. Clearly a Nadine knockoff, she could have been so awesome in the movie. She has a cool look, she's slick and sly, and a double-crossing mercenary, yet she's underused and flat and boring. She needed to be complex and memorable, and she just isn't. Then the film tries to be innocent when a character gets their neck slashed open and there's no blood spilling out whatsoever. They could have just not shown it happening on screen and its aftermath. There are filming techniques or cutaways to another character that can express that shock, and when it comes to the plot overall, you know how it's going to turn out. The group puts themselves in danger, but there's never any true risk for the characters. Though the movie does a decent job at the enormous set pieces, the airplane scene from Uncharted 3 and then a completely original scene featuring these ships flying through the air are full of adrenaline and they keep you very entertained. So the Uncharted movie does have potential to be great, but it needs to iron out a ton of its flaws. The games are excellent, and maybe this is a case where the games are cinematic enough that they never needed to have a movie. I think it would have been better to have made a completely original story for the film. Uncharted is like Tomb Raider, there are endless adventure stories that can be told. Regardless of Uncharted's shortcomings, I would still pay money to see a sequel, and I would hope that the sequel be way better because Uncharted deserves this. Next we have HBO's The Last of Us, the highest rated release by PlayStation Productions so far. It's also a show many have said to have broken the video game adaptation curse, and for me it's PlayStation's next worst production. For a lot of people, The Last of Us will be the best of the best PlayStation Productions has to offer. But I think because The Last of Us has been retold and resold so many times, including in this show, as I've talked about in this video, it felt like more of the same. A story I have heard too many times over a decade. If you've played The Last of Us, you know what to expect. Season 1 covers the entire first game and ends just the same. Yes, the show does change, alter, and omit certain scenes and characters, but they never truly venture into completely new territory, except maybe once. But none of it is as surprising as I would have liked it to be. There are few positives in the show, like explain the origins of the outbreak. It was very interesting to see this before the major buildup of the outbreak destroying humanity. I enjoyed seeing more of the relationship between Joel and his daughter Sarah. For the actor who plays Tommy, his voice is so close to the actor in the game, it gives you chills. And I really like the inclusion of actors who play characters in the game appear in the show. It's like a if you know type of thing when you see them. But I had more issues with the show than anything, like the Bill and Frank and Left Behind episodes. While they do serve a purpose in the overall narrative, they feel too long and extended like filler episodes. I kinda feel cheated out of Ellie meeting Bill and the hilarious banter the two would have towards one another. Sometimes The Last of Us expands on characters such as Bill and Frank's relationship, which is nice to see because we don't get to in the game. But then you have the character of Tess, who is super interesting in the show, but she never gets a chance to shine as much as she deserves. Another huge issue is the lack of clickers. In this world, yes, humans are more dangerous, but they take the time to explain how clickers operate, and it feels like they are severely underused the further you get into the show. Sure, there's a scene where a whole horde attacks, but really that's their big moment and then not so much following. It often feels like The Last of Us is confused on how it wants to present itself, like it wants to follow the game as much as possible, but when it does deviate, it feels so odd and out of place. A lot of the dialogue is pulled directly from the game, and sometimes it feels like cosplay between the actors when this happens. When certain scenes are replicated as seen in the game, some of them don't feel as impactful as they could be. Like Joel getting impaled at the university, it felt so cheap to see that, or when they expand upon the community Ellie's taken to when Joel's injured, but they only go so far in showing this and I'm left wanting to know more about it. So often I expected more of these plot points to be expanded upon and then they aren't, while others you wouldn't expect are. When it comes to the actors, Pedro Pascal does a fantastic job as Joel. But Bella Ramsey as Ellie sometimes works, and other times it's like they're trying too hard. Like the Ellie in the game influenced them too much, and their performance was more imitation than originality. But then you have the actor who plays Tommy, and his voice is incredibly close to the actor in the game, and it's so mind-blowing to hear. Personally, I'm more excited at the thought of Season 2 than anything. The fact that it's said to be multiple seasons because of its massive story will certainly be interesting to see. I think Season 2 will surprise us more and seeing how they handle certain impactful scenes. Things start to get better when it comes to Peacock's Twisted Metal. If you told me this wouldn't be the worst when I started the show, I would have been very surprised. But out of the four, I was excited for Twisted Metal the most. It's a series that hasn't had much love since the PlayStation 3, and it's also one of PlayStation's oldest series out there, so it's nice to see it get the love it has long deserved. However, Twisted Metal is a mixed bag. It was very rough to watch in the beginning. I honestly wasn't sure I was going to be able to get through every episode, but somehow I did, and I'm thankful that I did. It's a show that gets better the longer you watch it, and the characters grow on you. They have their motives and the reason for why they are the way they are. It's a messy world, but it does have its charm, and I really grew to enjoy it. While the juvenile, immature humor is severely overdone and can kill the vibe of certain scenes, there are some pretty hilarious and unexpected moments. And while Sweet Tooth appears as a joke character himself, it isn't long till you pretty much fall in love with the character. But the real beauty of Twisted Metal is how much it honors the entire game series. While the story is completely original, I love how it incorporates the characters, cars, and so much more into its own narrative. It's something familiar for longtime fans, but new and fresh to watch. From the games everyone knows to lesser known titles and even the worst games in the series, there is something fans will recognize and get excited for. Like this thing that's clearly a nod to Twisted Metal Small Brawl, and as someone who really loved that game, it was cool to see that spin-off recognized. You have a number of characters from the games returning, some very known and others not as much, like some ridiculous characters from Twisted Metal 3 and 4. Majority of the characters aren't exactly as they are in the games, a lot of them are changed from how they're remembered, but it's always exciting when these characters enter into the scene. However, for a game about car combat, the series has very little, but that works to its advantage. I couldn't expect the show to be in their cars all the time, that would probably get boring quickly. When these battles do happen, the show goes all out, though these cars don't really have their unique specials. So for the most part, the show decided to keep everything more grounded. Thankfully, the clash of these unique characters keep the show afloat. But by that final scene in the season finale, I wanted more. I need a season 2. That finale is how you get people excited for the next season. From its revelations to new appearance of characters, there is a ton to look forward to, and Season 2 will be the season everyone has been wanting. Twisted Metal had me thinking a lot about it after I finished it. It did its own thing, but also honored the series, and as a fan, I really liked experiencing something new and original. And that's why I enjoyed Twisted Metal over The Last of Us. While it doesn't have any depth or complexity, it was nice to watch and be surprised. Now the best is clearly Gran Turismo, and I never expected to be saying that. I'm not the biggest fan of Gran Turismo. I played some of the games, but it's always been more difficult for me to get into, yet the Gran Turismo movie is what I find to be the best of PlayStation productions so far. When they first talk about making a Gran Turismo movie, I wonder how that could happen for a game based on realistic simulation with absolutely no story. But basing it on a true story is genius, and a story that most people probably don't know of. I'm a sucker for a good true story flick. Granted, the narrative is twisted for a better structure as it is here, but it was cool to learn more about Jan Mardenborough. I saw an early showing of the film at the start of August. Going in, I didn't have high expectations, but leaving the film, I thought about it for days. I talked about it with other people, I was recommending it, it was far better than I ever thought it would be, and I even saw it again when it officially came out later in the month. While the film is ultimately one huge advertisement for Gran Turismo 7, that fact isn't as bothersome when it relates to the plot of the movie. I think I enjoyed it most because I could relate to it. For Jan, people didn't believe he could become a race car driver because it wasn't conventional, and often I feel a similar way with my own goals. Granted, the film is one of those underdog type of stories, everyone fights for this top spot, and while there are disputes and disbelief from other people, it's nice to see a story where everyone participating still has some kind of good sportsmanship, and at the end of it all, there is some kind of respect earned. The film is over 2 hours, but it never feels long, and I think it helps that you go from the training of GT Academy to Jan participating officially in various races, having a new goal to achieve. And with this, there's pressure. You see his rise, the struggle, his fall, and his journey to get back up again and complete what he started. And thanks to the incredible actors, you get a sense of realism and rawness in their performances of every scene. David Harbour is a complete standout in the film. The other characters are great, but his character makes the story what it is. Watching his character grow alongside that of Jan as both find, rediscover their passion, and push each other further for what they love. With the way the film is shot, you feel such a rush during every race, win or lose. You get to see outside the car and inside, the struggle, how cramped it is being in such a small space, the anxiety of passing the next car or making that correct turn, traveling around the world to these real life locations, and then going back to playing Gran Turismo 7 and getting excitement after seeing these tracks in the movie. It's really cool to make that connection. While I'm sure there are better racing movies out there, Gran Turismo is very surprising. It's exhilarating to watch, and if you play the games, especially Gran Turismo 7, you get even more appreciation for the film. I think I like Gran Turismo the same way I like Twisted Metal. Both were unexpected. Both were original and didn't have as high of expectations as the other two did. Yet they managed to deliver a fresh and enjoyable experience. So there we have it. Uncharted is the worst release and Gran Turismo is the best release of PlayStation productions. But this is only the beginning. With Ghost of Tsushima, Gravity Rush, Days Gone, God of War, Horizon, and many more set to be turned into movies and TV shows, there is a ton more I can't wait to see, and we will return to this list in the future once enough of these have been released. Again, let me know how you would rank these releases from PlayStation Productions in the comments below. Please be sure to like and subscribe for future content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.